Can you see the slides, students?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So last class I started with FTP. I think I started with uh, proxy servers. Then we started with FTP, and we got to know that there are a lot of differences between FTP and HTTP. HTTP is stateless protocol. You have to keep these points in your mind, students. If you want to know, if you want to note down, please note down these points. So HTTP is stateless protocol. FTP is stateful protocol. Uh, Port number of HTTP is 80. Port number of FTP is 20 and 21. 121 for control connection and 20 for data connection. Whereas HTTP uses both control and data in only one connection, that is port number 80. And HTTP is called as in-band, and FTP is called as out of band, because the data travels in another band, that is in another port. So these are the differences which we observed with respect to FTP. And I also told you a scenario where we use FTP servers. So sample commands of FTP send an ASCII text over control channel. So basically, when you use control channel, that will be for username and password. You don't have to type these commands actually. That will be automatically, you will have keys. Like if you want to upload, you will have a key. If you want to download, you will have a key. If you want to edit something, you will have a key for that. Just these commands will work in the background. Okay, in the control port, you will have like you are supposed to provide your username and password. List is a command which returns list of all the files in the current directory. RETR file name, so which retrieves a file. STOR file name, which stores file onto a remote host. Then some of the return codes. So status code and phrase, basically similar to HTTP, you have status code and phrase. In HTTP we have 200 OK, 404 error. Similarly, FTP also have status code and a phrase associated with that. 331 username OK, password required. 125 data connection already open, transfer starting. So all these are some of the examples of status code and its phrases. 425, if you have, that is basically can't open data connection. Some of the examples of FTP. Okay, so that's about FTP protocol. So in first chapter, that is in second chapter, that is in application layer, we have studied HTTP and FTP till now. Okay, this cookies or proxy servers are not protocols. Okay, there are some technologies, like cookie is a technology where you make HTTP as stateful, because it is stateless. If you want to have a state information, you will use cookie. Whereas proxy servers are those servers which help you to avoid traffic or unnecessary data communication in the internet. Okay, so those are technologies, whereas HTTP and FTP are protocols for data transfer. So with this FTP and HTTP, we will move to the next protocol. Okay, I think I have mentioned as DNS in your today's class, but before DNS we have mail. How mail transfer happens, what are the protocols involved in mail, those things we will study later. We will go to DNS. Okay, so let us start with electronic mail. What are the components required here for electronic mail? Okay, so let us see that. Let me take a pointer. Okay, so can anyone tell me like what are the protocols? Does anybody have an idea like how electronic mail works? Is it similar to HTTP, or do you have a separate procedure for this? Any guess, students? Am I audible, students?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So any guess on mails? Okay. So we understood that for HTTP, what is the transport layer protocol generally used for HTTP, students? Most of the times it is TCP, but UDP also can be used. If you are using FTP, definitely you will be using TCP in the underlying protocol, that is the transport layer protocol. For SMTP, can you guess what might be the underlying protocol? For electronic mail transfer, are you going to use TCP or UDP?
TCP, sir.
TCP. Why?
We should know whether the receiver has received the mail or not.
Okay, not just whether you want to know or not. It is basically reliability. Okay, so when you are transferring mail, it's some data which you are sending. It might be critical information or it might be a general information, whatever it is. But when you send some data, that data should reach the other person properly. If the data is missed in between sender and receiver, sender should get to know that information that receiver has not received it, and sender should retransmit it. Okay, that is very important. And if there is out of order data which is reaching the as a receiver, then sender should get to know about it and make sure the data is sent in order. Okay, all those things comes, or all those features are provided in TCP but not in UDP. So for mail servers or mail communication, definitely we require all these features, so we use TCP. Okay, that is one thing. And next, let us get into the major components of electronic mail. Major component is user agent, where user sits and tries to create a mail. Okay, that is the user agent in the end system. Mail servers, which are intermediate devices. So basically that is also a end device, but here in the mail architecture we can call it as intermediate device, because end user is not going to sit in the mail server and send a mail. Okay, so end user is going to sit in the user agent and send a mail. Okay, simple mail transfer protocol, that is SMTP. Simple mail transfer protocol, SMTP. These are the three major components of a electronic mail. You can observe here, from any mail server to any other mail server, communication is only through SMTP. Is that clear, students? So user agent, what is an user agent? It's a also known as mail reader. User agent is just a mail reader or mail generator. That is also you can call. So what does a user agent do? Compose a mail, edit a mail, reads a mail, and sends a mail. Okay, so example, what are the user agents? Like you have Outlook, you have Gmail, all those are user agents. Okay, so what else that this mail user agent do? User agent will store all the outgoing and incoming messages on server. Is that clear? So these are the works of user agent. Let us see what does a mail server do. Mailbox contains incoming messages for the user. Message queue of outgoing mail messages. SMTP protocol between mail servers to send mail messages. So basically you sits in a user agent and sends a mail. Basically what you are doing, you are actually connecting to a mail server. There will be a space provided to you for your account in the mail server, and in the mail server you will have that space for you. You will be storing all your messages in the mail server. Okay, so if you are sending mails continuously, that queue will be generated in your mail server. So everything what you store or edit, whatever you do, that is in the mail server. But to reach mail server, you will be using a user agent. Okay, students. So what is SMTP? So before going to SMTP, I would like to draw a simple diagram and tell you how the architecture of this works. So let me draw a simple diagram. Give me 1 minute, students. So I will call it as sender. Okay, Let me have another system here, somewhere in the other part of the city or country. So this is receiver. Okay. Now I have a mail server here. Please try to understand the diagram, students. I also have a mail server which is associated with the receiver. Okay. Now I sit here as a sender in the user agent, sends a mail to my mail server, and that mail will go to the recipient's mail server, and then from the mail server, recipient will actually pull that mail to its user agent. Okay. Now the protocol which is required to send a mail from your user agent to the mail server is SMTP. Is that clear? SMTP. From one mail server to other mail server, that is also SMTP. But when that mail has to be retrieved, or that when that mail has to be pulled from this mail server to the recipient's user agent, we are not going to use SMTP. Keep that in mind, students. Let me draw the arrows also, directions. So when you are pulling that mail from the recipient's mail server to the recipient user agent, it will be either POP or IMAP or HTTP. Receiver, sender, this is P, students. This is also P. IMAP, this is also P. Okay. So here it is sender and here it is receiver. I will write it as, this is sender's server and this is receiver server. Okay. Now what happens when you want to create a mail account in any kind of user agent? If you want to create a mail account, what will happen? So you will be allocate for you, there will be a space allocated in the mail server near to you. Is that clear? So in that space, that is a account which you have in this particular server. When you send a mail, that mail will come to this server first. Is that clear? It will come to this server. In the server, it will be stored first. That is your recipient sender's server. Is that clear? And that mail will directly go from the sender server to recipient server. There are no intermediate servers here. Is that clear, students? Directly from the sender server to recipient server, the mail will transfer. It may be of any distance. If you think the recipient server is there in the other part of the world, it's okay. There will be no intermediate servers to store that mail. From the sender server, the mail will directly go to the recipient server and that will be stored in the recipient server. Now till here, it is basically pushing the mail. Is that clear? This is push. Is that clear, students? So basically you are pushing the mail from a user agent to the sender's server, and from sender servers to the recipient server you are pushing the mail. Then this receiver has to pull that mail from the recipient's server. Is that clear? So this part is called as pull. This part is called as pull. Because that mail will be stored in the recipient's mail server here, that will be stored in the recipient's mail server. Receiver, whenever receiver is free or whenever receiver wants to look into that mail, receiver agent will, or user agent basically, will log in to the receiver server and then pulls that mail using either POP or IMAP or HTTP. Is that clear? So basically SMTP is called as a push protocol. POP, IMAP or HTTP is called as a pull protocol. See, if you look at any browsing options, you are using HTTP to pull a data from any server to your end device, right? So basically HTTP is called as pull, IMAP is also pull, and POP is also pull, whereas SMTP is called as push protocol. I hope the scenario of this mail architecture is clear to you. Have any questions regarding this, students? The architecture of the mail, architecture of electronic mail.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, since SMTP's underlying protocol is TCP, SMTP supports only text messages, no sir?
Not just text messages. SMTP will also support if you want to do an attachment. SMTP will support for the attachments also. It may be a image file, it may be a doc file, whatever it is.
But the nowadays voicemail, that for that voicemail and all we use UDP, no sir?
Voicemail is a totally different thing. What I'm speaking here is with a user agent. If you are trying to use SMTP for sending mails, then it definitely uses TCP.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Okay.
Got it?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, students?
Sir, messages must be in 7-bit ASCII. What does that signify, sir?
It's a format in which your messages will travel. Whatever the message can be, it can be just a written text in the mail, or it's an attachment, whatever it is, it has to be, when you write it, it has to be in 7-bit ASCII. As a end user, we are not going to follow all those things. We just type whatever we want, but it uses a format which is ASCII format. There are many other formats, no, ASCII, and IBM has its own format, and then there is one more. I will let you know about it. But basically, ASCII is just a text format in which you are going to enter the data. You don't have to worry about that. Okay.
And sir, can you explain the handshaking part also in the dial-up? Basically, what happens was we send a request to the server and it accepts, and then only we connect, no sir. Like, what is
For
handshake?
SMTP, no, handshake, we are not going to discuss handshake in this chapter. Handshake, we will be clearly discussing in depth in transport layer, because handshake part will be taken care by TCP. SMTP or HTTP or FTP is not worried about handshake at all. That comes in the transport layer chapter. TCP will take care of handshake.
Okay, sir.
It's basically handshake in the sense, see, for example, when I started today's class, I said, good morning, everyone. It's just a kind of protocol which a rule we are following. Not like a rule, it's a procedure. Okay. See, I say, good morning, I greet you, then you greet me, then I will start, say, okay, students, I'm going to teach this today for you. Basically, a kind of small introduction or parameters which I tell you before doing something. Okay. And I also make sure that you are ready to listen. I will ask whether I'm audible, whether my presentation is visible to you. All these things are handshake, which comes, which is basically called as the connection setup phase, handshake phase. Okay. So that will be done by TCP layer. Okay, not layer, TCP protocol, which is there in the transport layer. Okay, none of the application layers are worried about the handshake. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So SMTP, the RFC code of SMTP is 2821. SMTP uses TCP to reliably transfer mail messages from client to server, and the port number of SMTP is 25. Remember all these port number, students. For HTTP it is 80, for FTP it is 20 and 21, 20 for control and 21 for data, and then SMTP port number is 25. Direct transfer, sending server to receiver server. Is that clear? That's what I told you. Sender server to receiver server, it's a direct transfer. There is no intermediate servers in between client and servers, sender and receiver servers. Okay. Three phase of transfer, shaking, that is greeting. So that is what I told you, that I will be discussing in transport layer. Here in this chapter, you need not worry about it. Transfer of messages and closure. Okay, closure also basically tear down phase, that also we will be discussing in detail in transport layer. So command response interaction, just like HTTP and FTP, you have commands here also. So basically which you send in ASCII text, it's a format. And response also similar to HTTP and FTP, you have status code and phases associated with it. Messages must be in 7-bit ASCII, which is a format that is followed by mails. Okay. Then a scenario, you can see this scenario. So Alice composes a message to Bob, and you can see here user agent, and it sends to the mail server, Alice mail server. You can see here it is Alice mail server, and then it directly goes to the Bob's mail server, and from Bob's mail server to the Bob's user agent. Okay, as the same scenario what I told you. From here, this and this will be SMTP, and this will be POP, IMAP, or HTTP. Is that clear? So sample SMTP interactions. So this is the format you can see, students. You can see here some of the commands. Hello, mail from recipient to data and quit. Okay, so you can't visualize this format actually. I mean, you can't visualize these commands, but when you do compose a mail, you can see this, like from whom you are sending, to whom you are sending, what is the data, and finally quit. You don't see all this, but that will be a format which is followed for every mail what you send. You can see 5 different commands here. Hello, when you start your start composing your mail, then obviously you will be from automatically it will take, but you have to enter the recipient to whom you are sending. Data you have to type. Quit, you are not going to use it, but when you compose, finish your mail, and when you start sending it, these commands will be generated automatically. Okay. So try SMTP interaction for yourself. So you will see this later with a Telnet. When we teach you Telnet, we will do it in the lab sessions. So some important things which you have to remember with respect to SMTP. SMTP uses persistent connection. What do you mean by persistent connection, students? Persistent and non-persistent. Ullas sir might have discussed this already.
So once the connection is established, any number of requests can be sent and received.
Yes, in a single connection, you will be sending multiple objects, I can say. Not requests or in the response, you have to use the term objects in a single connection. Say, for example, in a particular web page, you have 20 objects. If you have non-persistent connection, for every object, you have to send a request, connection establishment, and connection teardown, which will have one RTT and then one more RTT for your data. So put together for 20 objects, you need around 60 RTTs. One for connection establishment, one for connection teardown, and one for data transfer. But if you can do all those 20 objects, if you can retrieve or receive all those 20 objects in a particular connection, then there is only one time you have to go for connection establishment and connection teardown. That is called as persistent connection. SMTP also uses persistent connection, students. SMTP requires message to be in 7-bit ASCII. SMTP server uses CRLF to determine the end of messages. So need not worry about it. Comparison with HTTP, this is important. HTTP is a pull protocol, SMTP is a push protocol. I have told you this. Both have ASCII command response interaction and status code. That means whatever you observe, the status code, what you get is also in the ASCII format. HTTP, each object is encapsulated in its own response message. SMTP, multiple objects sent in multi-part messages. Okay, so mail message format, you have header, you have body, you have blank line. I don't think all these are important, students. You need not worry about all these things. What you need to know is the protocols. What are push protocol, what are pull protocol, how the architecture works, and what are the protocol numbers. Okay. Okay. So yeah.
Sir, cannot say that directly that HTTP is a pull protocol, no sir. Only when SMTP is involved, HTTP may be a pull protocol. But otherwise, we are using HTTP for requesting some web pages also, no sir. So that is
See,
like,
in requesting web page also, you are not going to push anything. It is just a request, a small URL you are going to type, right? So most of the time it is something you are pulling from the server, is it not? Do you agree with that?
yeah, we are requesting something and we are getting an output.
Yeah. So you are trying to pull something out from a server always, right? So basically that's the reason why basically it is called as pull protocol. But it is a debatable topic. You can say yes, HTTP takes my request also. I am pushing something. Yes, of course, that is true. But generally, as a whole, if you see, most of the times you use HTTP for pulling something. Is it not?
Yes, sir.
But with respect to SMTP, if you say, definitely you can tell that HTTP is a pull protocol when you are sending mails. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Clear.
So SMTP, delivery storage to the receiver's server. Mail access protocols. These pull protocols are also called as mail access protocols. Keep that in mind. For accessing the mails, definitely you have to use these pull protocols only. The first one is POP, that is Post Office Protocol, authorization and download. Second one is IMAP, that is Internet Mail Access Protocol. You can see the RFC numbers, students. Just whenever you are free, take these RFC numbers, 1939, RFC 1939, you type in Google and see what you get. Okay. So there are more features in IMAP compared to POP, including manipulation of stored messages on servers, those things. So nowadays, whatever the mail agents we are using or mail servers we are using, that runs with IMAP and HTTP. Is that clear? So HTTP, you can see Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, all this uses HTTP itself for pulling a message, pulling a mail from the mail server to your end device. Is that clear? So let's see. This is what the diagram I wrote, students. You can see from the user agent, you are using SMTP. From your sender's mail server to receiver's mail server, you are using SMTP. Then from receiver mail server to the receiver user agent, you are using mail access protocols, POP, IMAP, and HTTP. Okay. So let's see POP3 protocol. Like 3 is the version. POP3 is the general version which is being used. So authorization phase, client command, user, password. I don't think again this is required to you. What you have to understand, the difference between POP and IMAP is there is something called as download and delete and download and keep. We will see that in the this is the important slide which you need to remember. Previous examples uses POP3, download and delete mode. Bob cannot reread email if he changes the client. That means when you are using download and delete, students, say for example, say I am using POP3 and I am using download and delete mode. In download and delete mode, what happens? I will receive a mail. I have received a mail from someone. I am going to use my end device, my laptop, and I am trying to download the I am trying to pull the mail. When you do that, you are actually downloading the mail to your end device, and that will be there in the browser history. Okay, and you are deleting it. By default, that will be deleted in the mail server. Later, if I want to access that mail from my mobile, you cannot access it. You cannot see that mail at all, because that will be downloaded to your device which you have used, and only when you access your mail server through that device, that mail will be there. Is that clear? Nowadays, nobody uses download and delete. The other one is download and keep. You can access that mail from any number of devices. Is that clear? POP3 is stateless across the session. Let's see what is IMAP. Keep all the messages in one place at server. Allows user to organize messages in different folders. That's what we do nowadays. That's why I told POP3 is a kind of extinct protocol. We are using IMAP and HTTP more often. Keeps user state across sessions, names of folders, and mapping between message IDs and folder names. Okay, so these are the major difference between POP3 and IMAP. Okay, so that's about mail architecture. Any question regarding the mail architecture, students? SMTP, POP3, IMAP. Try to find out the port number of POP3 and IMAP by yourself. Okay, so I have given you the port numbers. For HTTP it is 80, for FTP it is 20 and 21, 20 for control and 21 for data, and then SMTP it is 25. Try to find the port number of POP3 and IMAP. Is it clear, students? Shall we go to the next topic? Hello? Am I audible, students?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir,
Okay. Yeah.
so POP3, if it has a port number, so where will the port number be? Will it be in the server side, the recipient server, or on the recipient's user?
No, it is like it will not be kind of, see, port numbers in the sense I have discussed socket with you, right? So, combination of socket and combination of port number and your IP address creates a socket. Okay, because from your end device there might be multiple requests going to many other servers, or for a single server there might be multiple requests going. So if you don't use the port numbers, differentiating those requests will be a difficult thing. And when you receive the responses also, giving it to a particular application will be a difficult thing. Now your mail has come to a receiver mail server. From the receiver mail server, you need to access that mail. So when you are sending a request, you have to combine your IP address with the port number of the protocol which you are using. Is that clear? So only that combination will help you to access it. If I use 80 instead of POP3's port number, obviously you can't access it.
Okay, sir. So what if 80 is already being used by something else, sir?
Nobody can use 80
No, sir,
apart
it's
from
a
HTTP.
HTTP request, no, sir. So say I am trying to access a web page from my receiver's machine, and like both, like accessing a web page and email, both together is possible, no, sir. So in that case,
Basically, I'll tell you what happens. Different applications will generate a user-defined port number. See, there are port number ranges starts from 0 to 64,780 or some number, 64,000 some odd number. Okay, so there are well-defined port numbers. These port numbers, what we call as well-defined port numbers. That means in the servers there are sockets which will be open, and those sockets are using these well-defined numbers. Okay, but when you send a request from your side, that can be changed. I will discuss that with you some other time, because it takes more time to discuss how the port number changing happens. That happens with respect to network address translator. There we will be discussing it, but in detail I have to discuss it. Now if I tell briefly, you can't understand it. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Anything else regarding mail servers or electronic mail, students? So in this chapter, we have already discussed 5 different types of protocols. HTTP, FTP, SMTP in depth we have discussed. POP3 and IMAP briefly we have discussed. Okay, 5 protocols, first chapter. Next one is DNS. You might have come across this DNS. What is DNS, students? Any guess?
Domain name system.
Domain name systems. What do they do? What do domain name systems do?
They map an IP address with a domain name.
Why you have to do that actually?
For user experience, we can't remember the IP address of websites all the time, but we instead type google.com or the domain name, and internally it will map the domain name to its IP address and then open the website.
Okay. That is a major reason. I agree with that. Okay. Any other reasons, students? Any other reason? Why IP address domain names has to be converted into or mapped into its specific IP? When I typed google.com, that google.com is a domain name. So that domain name has to be converted into its IP address, and then it has to be forwarded out of your network. So there will be DNS servers in your network itself. DNS servers will be located in your network. When you send a request, initially what happens, the browser will send a request to the DNS, and the DNS will map what is the exact IP address of that particular domain name and gives it back to you. Then your communication starts. Okay. So now, what might be the other reason? One is, yes, what you said is right. We cannot remember the IP addresses. It's very difficult. Do you think those IP addresses change frequently? IP addresses of the public servers, do they change frequently?
No, sir.
Yes, they do.
Okay. Fine. We will stop here then. We'll start discussing DNS in depth in the next class. Okay. So find out the port number for POP3 and IMAP. Get back to me in the next class. Tomorrow you have a class, right? Yes, tomorrow you have a class. Any other question regarding mails, students?
Sir?
Hello? Am I audible?
Sir? Sir?
Any no questions, right? If you don't have any questions, you can leave.
Sir, how can we know that which particular port of our system is currently allocated to some website at current situation?
See, as a end user, you need not know it. But if you, for your understanding purpose, if you want to know it, I will give you a command. So through that command, you can actually check which application is using which port number. Okay. I will share that command later.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, NetStat can be